Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is Astral Visit to Ancient Atlantis. I've been looking forward to doing this one. Before we get into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support Astral Club, you can do so on Patreon. When you join, you get advanced episodes on Sunday, commercial free. You get a library of downloaded episodes for your podcast app and a Patreon email where we can talk back and forth. And you'll join some new members, for instance, LNC, who's an Astral Scout, Joseph W., who's an Astral Scout, RR, who is an Astral Master, and John Zell B., who is an Astral Scout. Thank you very much for joining Astral Club. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like a lesson to learn how to astral project or to improve your current abilities, be glad to work with you. You will find an email in the description section, and just send me an email asking for information, and I'll be glad to send that along to you. Okay, let's get started. I have a long list of destinations that are my wish list, and I'm constantly adding to it, and y'all are also constantly sending me suggestions, and I'm adding it to the list. One of the items that's been on the list for a long time is to try to visit ancient Atlantis. Now, I think just about everybody listening to this particular channel is well aware of the myth of ancient Atlantis, but just to bring everybody quickly up to speed, in Plato's works, the Greek philosopher, he talked about the island of Atlas, which was apparently beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we would call, less poetically, the Straits of Gibraltar, which of course separates the Mediterranean from the Atlantic. And this hypothetical society started out noble in Plato's works, but it fell into corruption and was eventually destroyed in a single day and night. And this myth has come down to us, if indeed it is a myth, from the distant past. And it's incited much ink being spilled with books talking about Atlantis and where it might be. Some people said, oh, it's in the Mediterranean somewhere. Others said, no, it's an island in the Atlantic. And there's some people said, oh, no, it's in the Bahamas. And that's why, because it sank, that's why there used to be the Bermuda Triangle. People used to talk about that all the time, and boats would be lost there. And so there was a lot of areas around the world where supposedly this lost island of Atlantis was to exist. I, 3 years ago, had an episode which I called Visiting Woolly Mammoths and Ancient Atlanteans. I posted it 3 years ago, so those who've been listening to the channel for years now probably remember the episode. But there probably are some new people who, with the 333 some episodes I have, probably may not have checked it out. I will have a link I'll pin it in the description and also in the comments section, so that if you'd like to check it out, you can just click on it and check it out. It's quite fascinating. I was able to travel back in time thousands of years, where I was able to check out some woolly mammoths. And also, when I was flying over the sea, I caught sight of a very advanced Atlantean fishing fleet. So you might find that interesting. So check it out if it's something that, that you'd like to find out more about. But right now, I want to talk about the experience I had actually visiting ancient Atlantis. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't spend as much time there as I'd like, because I aimed for about 12,000 years in the past. That's where I wanted to start. And my idea, though, was also to have a twin goal, which was also to find Atlantis when it was at its peak. So I was conjuring up the best vibration I got from the ships that I saw that were Atlantean in nature, and together with that past goal of going back around 12,000 years, I projected myself focusing on those two things, which is a lot harder than maybe it sounds. I blacked out. When I came to, I was quite shocked because it wasn't what I expected to see, because I was hovering high above the northwestern part of Africa. That was a surprise. I didn't expect that. I could feel below me the vibration of a vital city that was advanced and functioning beneath me. I couldn't see it yet, but I sensed that it was there. But what really got me, even because it distracted me from the actual seeking after Atlantis, was that below me was not the Sahara Desert. Now, anybody who has the faintest knowledge of geography knows that the northern part of Africa is marked by one huge famous desert called the Sahara. But that's not what I was seeing below me now. What I was seeing below me was greenery and something that might be described as savanna. I didn't expect to see that. So I decided to dive down, get closer, so that I could sight in a little bit more detailed as far as what was going on down there in this green northern Africa. So I dove down, and as I got some hundreds of feet above the ground, I soared over the whole area. I wasn't even worried about. I could see what I thought was Atlantis in the distance, but I was more interested in exploring what was going on here. And as I soared over this area, I found lakes, rivers. I saw giraffes, hippos, antelopes, and I saw alligators. That's not something you're going to typically see in the Sahara Desert nowadays. When I got back to my body, I did a little bit of research and found out that our scientists were already aware of this situation. Apparently, there's something called the Milankovitch cycles, and it involves the change in the eccentricity of the shape of Earth's orbit, the tilt, which apparently oscillates 2% in a 41,000-year cycle, and there's also an axis wobbling, which can affect the weather as well. All of this together adds up to about every 20 or 20,000 or 21,000 years, the Sahara Desert becomes wetter, and you have what I see below me, or what I saw below me, which was essentially, a vibrant savanna with a lot of life and water. So, but I didn't know that at the time, so I just kind of stored all this away as oh, maybe I discovered something. But then I decided to head towards the shore, and keep in mind, once again, this was in the northwestern part of Africa. And as I got closer and closer, I beheld an amazing city. What I beheld was a central circle with obelisks that shone in the sun with golden capstones. I saw what looked to me like temples, buildings, and there was concentric circles coming out from that center circle with moats around, and I mean very large moats, with boats in them that were just, paddling around the area, and there was several circles coming outwards, and there was four different major causeways, and I saw minor causeways as well. The whole center part, all the buildings in the center circle looked to me like they were made from white marble, and it gleamed in the sunlight. It was quite beautiful. Now, the buildings that I saw in the lesser circles radiating outwards looked like they were made of clay or mud brick, something that you might more readily see in in much later times on Earth, in places like Sumeria, maybe Egypt, but the whole thing reminded me of the Aztec city of Montezuma, Tenochtitlan, except for this is thousands of years before that city was ever dreamed of. I couldn't help but zoom in closer. I landed in the central circle. Now, the people were milling about, going about their lives, carrying baskets of fruit and vegetables. They were wearing woven plant clothing. The women wore frocks. The men wore, I guess in essence, skirts that were also made of some sort of woven plant fiber. They were tanned, I would say. They kind of reminded me of, with black hair, they kind of reminded me of ancient Egyptians. And it was quite striking. They were very handsome people. Now, unfortunately, due to the laws of time travel, they could not see me, and I could not communicate with them or affect anything, in that reality. I was able to scan some minds, though, and, they were humans just like us, and they had their worries about, feeding their family and whether there'd be plentiful crops and fish. Fish was a very big part of their diet, which makes sense because when I saw, if you check out the other episode I talked about earlier, I saw one of their fishing fleets. So fish was a big part of their diet. But also they had, I saw a number of vegetables and fruit. They looked like very healthy people. As I looked about, I was in awe of some of the temples and these obelisks that towered around the center part of the city. It seemed to me that the center part was probably where the elite lived, or maybe where the government was situated. Certainly, some of the big-looking temple things looked to me like perhaps that's where the religious services might be held, because the outer circles, it looked very much like markets and typical homes and apartment buildings and things like that. So I was more interested in exploring the central part. I walked through the causeway, which was a very well constructed road. I was very impressed. Everything was clean. I didn't see some of the refuse or trash that you sometimes hear about ancient cities, but it looked very clean to me. I went into one of the large temples. It looked like kind of a ziggurat, if you've seen those before. You had a larger base with lots of porticos and openings that allowed with pillars on either side. So it made a very imposing structure, and there was four different levels. There was the base, and there was three levels on top. So I walked into the bottom level there, and the inside was amazing. Once again, you had these white marble walls. Everything was white marble. I don't know where they got it, but it was beautiful. And there was gold accents everywhere surrounding the central chamber of this temple. I didn't see a big statue, which I kind of expected, with like Greek gods, Roman gods, that kind of thing. But instead, what I saw was a very large looked like to me like a quartz crystal that had gold flecks all through it. And it was mounted in some sort of a tripod looking device. And I looked above it, and there was a ceiling, and I could see that it was split in half so that it was closed when I saw it. But it looked to me like it could probably be open, because why else would it be cut in half like that? I imagine that huge quartz crystal, which was about as big as I was, as tall as a man, I can imagine how that would have shone in the sun, and such a beautiful crystal like that would definitely awe anyone coming into that temple. I didn't see any worshipers, but I did see some priests milling about, and they weren't just wearing the skirts like other men. No, they were wearing some sort of robes that were also made of the same kind of plant fiber, but they were colorful. And so I was thinking that perhaps they were in charge of that temple. I could feel this energy and the waves of energy coming off this crystal as well. And I didn't know whether these people were aware of that, but perhaps they were. Why else would they have that as a centerpiece in a temple? But who knows? It was quite enthralling, though, because there was these waves of throbbing energy that was coming off of this enormous crystal. And I could very easily have just stared at that thing for the rest of my time. But I was sensitive to the fact that the clock was ticking, because when you're dealing with ancient past, you don't have a lot of time to spend. So I left the temple and I took to the air again, this time flying over the rest of the city, just observing the everyday activities of these people. I was able to sense some decent intelligence. I mean, there was workers, and they had the typical concerns that my guess is our workers would today. But I did sense also some very educated individuals. Now, they had some concepts in their mind that was mathematical and geometric, engineering, which unfortunately, most of which was over my head even now. So it kind of humbled me a little bit. These people lived so long ago, and here they are with knowledge that kind of even blows my mind away. But these were not primitive people by any stretch of the imagination. And of course, a city such as what I have described here would require an engineering knowledge that probably wouldn't be rivaled again for many thousands of years, until we got to the more closer to the modern era. And certainly, as I said, it reminded me of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec city of Montezuma. So you're talking about a very advanced place. Now, there was greenery everywhere as well. They had trees and shrubs circulated throughout all of the rings. Each one of the major causeways was guarded by a gate. It was a large mud brick type gate that was guarded by several guards holding bronze-looking type spears. And as I flew around, it was pretty much the same situation at each of the four major gates. As I said, there were some minor ones that may have been used for other activity, but these were the major causeways. There was so much more I wanted to do, but I could sense that my time was growing short, and I wanted to see the big show now. And we all know what that is. What happened to ancient Atlantis? So I went up about 500 feet into the air or so and started progressing myself forward in time. As I did so, the years ticked by, and I was able to maintain my consciousness through an extreme force of will, which is highly unusual, but I was able to do it because I was so fixated that I had to see what happened to Atlantis. This miraculous city, this legendary city that has caused so much speculation, starting with Plato on to our modern day. So as I was going forward, I could see the city changing. I could see it growing, buildings falling, new ones building up. And I imagined some hundreds of years ticked by. New temples went up, bigger obelisks. It was a lot of fun just watching this wondrous city change. But then I sensed an enormous amount of fear coming off of the people, and I stopped immediately. And as soon as I stopped, I looked at the horizon. Incoming was an enormous wall of water coming from, obviously, the ocean. And it was hundreds of feet high. I would say, at least a few hundred feet high, if not more. And I guess for the metric folks, a couple hundred feet is like 60 meters. It was enormous. It frightened me, and I'm a ghost here. And the fear that was coming off the people, some of them were frozen in horror. Others were running, and I thought to myself, I couldn't even see the end of this wall of water. I mean, it looked like it was the entire horizon, and it was coming in. And I looked at those people, and I knew there was nothing they could do. There's no way you're going to beat this disaster, this oncoming death that surely was going to sweep everyone and this miraculous city away, wipe it off the face of the earth. I was frozen in horror, looking at. I even went higher myself because I was spooked by this enormous catastrophe that was bearing down at enormous speeds on this wondrous advanced city. And as I watched it hit and swept over the poor city and the whole area that I was hovering over, as I went higher and higher, it just engulfed that whole northwestern part of Africa with rubble and boulders and bits of trees and just horrible. It just, 1 minute you have this vibrant civilization on this plain, with all these life forms that we know typically from sub-Saharan Africa. Here I am looking at this wondrous world that existed today, where there's only sand and barrenness, and all I see beneath me now is just water, just churning water. With I didn't see any survivors. I don't know how anyone could survive something like that. Maybe you would have to be further out to sea. And that's probably what I think happened. Whatever survivors were left, and there was always myths of survivors of Atlantis. If they were out to sea, a tsunami like that, if they were further out to sea, wouldn't affect them. And perhaps what happened is they went ahead and went to places like Mesopotamia and what we know today is Egypt, and some other societies around the Mediterranean. Perhaps they would found what would one day be known as the Phoenicians. All these advanced societies that would one day, many thousands of years later, take hold, and perhaps they owe their existence to whatever knowledge these ancient Atlanteans who had escaped were able to bring with them. Well, that was my experience, because I was I was just sitting there, just staring dumbfounded at the swirling water, at what used to be a beautiful city in an area of Africa, and then I was pulled back, and I didn't fight it because what was the point? And then that's when I returned to my physical body. So that was my visit to ancient Atlantis. As I said, it's always frustrating when I travel into the past because the time I can spend there is much too short, which is why I usually like going into the future, because I'm afforded so much more time that I can spend there, and I can find out so much more. But those minutes that I was able to spend there, I found out quite a bit. And as I said, when I returned to my body, I did some research, and that's when I found out that scientists were well aware of the changing cycles of the Sahara Desert. So that's not a surprise, but I can confirm that the city that we can call Atlantis definitely did exist, and it was quite miraculous. Some of the science that I read talked about the Holocene, and there was a disaster at the end of the Ice Age, and that may have maybe there was huge ice chunks that fell. Maybe there was other Earth changes that fell into the ocean, causing an enormous tsunami that destroyed the civilization of Atlantis. There's a lot of theories. There's no shortage of theories. But, I can confirm at least that it was indeed an enormous tsunami that destroyed the legendary and miraculous city of Atlantis. If you like that, please hit the like button. Share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I know you're going to have questions and comments. Please, leave them below and let me know what you think and what questions you have. And would you like to visit Atlantis? It's quite beautiful, I can tell you that, and it's much more beautiful than I expected, especially with that white marble. How they got that was probably miraculous in and of itself. Okay, well, as always, this is Rick, and I'll see you on the astral plane.